Welcome to Ask the Secure Guy. I'm Holly Maggs, and Sean is away from us this today. He is at a conference up in Northern California. Excuse me. So we're trying something different, and what we're going to do is show the July 2016 show where Sean talks about being the victim of identity theft. And hopefully this is working right. I'm trying some new technology and it's doing some weird things. So we'll start the video. If you have questions, go ahead and put those in the chat. I'll try to answer those. And if not, I'll get the answers to you when Sean gets back. And I'll talk to you at the end of the show.
So identity theft, like you mentioned, is truly a topic near and dear to my heart. That is really, one of the major end games for a lot of the criminal activity we see online. Stealing somebody's identity, opening credit cards, buying houses, boats, opening lines of credit, new bank accounts, that kind of thing. Just in fact, about 3 weeks ago, I was on a vacation day with my sons, and I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. So I let it go to voicemail, and it said it was from my bank, and they were calling me about a fraud alert, and blah 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 blah. And the message sounded kind of funky. So I checked on my phone. I have a banking app with my bank, and I checked that, and all of a sudden I noticed I had a new checking account with a negative $800,000 balance.
Wow.
So now I know good and well that I did not buy a yacht, even though the thoughts, But anyway, didn't buy a yacht. So I called the number that I knew from my bank and talked to them about it. And they told me, yes, in fact, they had tried contacting me that morning and verified that the message that had been left was from them. And then we went through a series of steps to verify what had happened, what they said. And what had happened was they noticed the account getting created. It was created online, just an empty checking account. Somebody had gotten some of my information, enough to open the account, but they were in Davis, California. So, red flag right there. So, I worked with the folks at the bank. They were great. Put in a series of additional security controls to prevent that from happening. And then I followed my own steps, the ones I have published on security.ap.edu for, a compromised, a stolen identity. Because for them to have enough information to open a checking account means that they had, technically my identity has been stolen. And like I've mentioned before, for everyone, it's not a matter of if, it's when. Your data lives online in places you can't control. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is our dearly beloved Internal Revenue Service. Before we dig into that, though, I wanted to go over some statistics. Last year, in 2015, hacking incidents, and now those are instances where a criminal actively broke into the electronic services of an organization, has reached a 9-year high of 37.9% of all recorded incidents. Okay. So that is a jump of 8.4% over 2014. So we're seeing a sharp increase in that type of cybercrime. Now, what's interesting was the second biggest was the employee error negligence category was at 14.9%, which is more than double of what was reported in 2012. So we're seeing a sharp increase in the employee negligence category as well. What that means was a simple human error, somebody made a mistake, transmitted a file they shouldn't have transmitted via email. Basic things that you would not think would cause a breach have caused numerous breaches.
Now, are we talking?
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sean. Are we talking what employees? Are we talking bank employees, credit card employees? Who's the employees?
This is general.
Okay.
So this is just any employee worldwide. Doesn't matter, industry, rank, anything. This is just employee error. So it could be a C-level person who sent an email with a confidential file that wasn't encrypted. That would qualify as employee error or negligence, down to, any line level staff person doing the same thing. So from a categorization standpoint, we don't care what level of the organization they're in. It's the type of action that was taken that led to the breach is what we're looking at. So another little tidbit, the number of breaches involving Social Security numbers in 2015 totaled 338. Now that's a modest increase of 1.8% over the 325 reported in 2014. However, this involved 164 million records worldwide. So just to give some context around this, that's 164 million just in that category involving Social Security numbers.
Wow.
Now, when we say worldwide, that's because SSNs can exist in systems outside the U.S., even though they're, its primary use is within the U.S. Right? There are other identifiers for international entities. So really, what you could say is that's 164 million U.S. identities. So just take a second to process that.
I really don't want to. That's the reason it's so cheap to buy an identity, right?
Well, to borrow a line from a movie, the odds are not in your favor. So that leads me to the IRS. This year, I was contacted by a number of people, both here at APU and personally, people who had their taxes filed before they filed. So what that means is somebody got a hold of their identity, W-2 information or enough information to fake it, and filed tax returns on their behalf. And generally, what the criminals went after was a very large refund. Now, this is usually a two-step process. What will happen is they'll request the refund check will be sent to your house. They'll contact you through a different means to extort it out of you.
Nice.
Yeah. But the IRS, because of their own breach in 2015, has been doing actually a very good job of working with people who are reporting these to rectify the situation. Volume aside, all the reports I've gotten back from folks who've had this happen have recorded a very positive interaction with the IRS. I know that's something you will never hear me say out loud. But I have to acknowledge that the IRS is doing a good job with remediation, even though they did a very poor job at preventing the barn door being open in the first place. So let's talk about this breach. Last year, the IRS initially reported 100,000 identities, taxpayer identities stolen. That included full name, date of birth, social security number, mailing address, all pertinent contact information, including social security number. And it opened access to they had a tool going then that they've since shut down that allowed a criminal, if they had that information, to go line by line and get all of your financial information that you were reporting. So anything that you reported to the IRS was available to the crooks, period. So if we look at it in context of total U.S. population and 100,000 people, it's actually not bad. It's kind of a drop in the bucket. Well, then a few months later, it went to 334,000. And then a few months after that, it went to 700,000. So at this point, it's really safe to say we don't know how big this breach is still. They're under investigation. It was interesting. There was a quote by the IRS Inspector General who says, "Computer security has been problematic for the IRS since 1997. If you remember what computing was like in 1997, that's a pretty profound statement. because the difference in technology between then and now is significant. And for the IRS Inspector General to go forward and make that statement is pretty telling, because this organization is one of the biggest repositories of that, your everything about you plus your financials, period. Run by the lowest bidder. So, if you're a victim of, especially one of the tax fraud events, follow the steps on our stolen identity page on security.ap.edu. The FTC also has an outstanding website now. If you just search identity theft FTC, their page is really, really well done. I went ahead and I filed a police report. I filed with the FTC and went through all the steps there. And like I said, followed my own instructions. But it's the process for dealing with a stolen identity has gotten so much better than it used to be. And we have continually kept up the steps on security.ap.edu on how to deal with it once it's happened. So is it going to be a little intrusive? Yeah, it's going to took me maybe 2 hours tops to go through all the things I need to go through. But I also signed up for LifeLock while I was at it. I've mentioned that on the show. Now I'm a customer. So, for $10 a month, why not? Am I overly concerned? Not really. Because, again, you've taken all the reasonable steps. Now, to circle back, when we talk about prevention, how do you stop this from happening? Well, the first thing is to obviously you want to consider how many places does your information exist that you know about. Because at the end of the day, they are the custodians of your data. The IRS is one of the biggest. You have very little, if not any, control over how they store your data. Just is what it is. Doctor's office, dentist's office are my favorite targets. The healthcare industry was actually it was the second largest breach platform in 2015. The second largest source of compromised identities. So, as we go through this, what are some steps we can do? Well, one of the biggest ones is still put a freeze on your credit. That's a proactive step. Now, it wouldn't have stopped a new account creation like was in my case, but it would stop anybody trying to open a credit card, take a bank loan, buy a house. So any of those significant problems that can be very hard to undo and can take a while, a credit freeze will just stop it flat out from even starting. So there are steps you can take. Another thing, and I know we beat this horse to death, Holly, is make sure that you're using individual passwords on all your different accounts and use a password manager to keep it all straight. But your personal email account is your single most important account, because that's where all the password resets are going to go. That's where a lot of the personal information can be found about you. If somebody were to compromise that account, all they have to do is read. And your social media accounts, and what I found is people who use one password for a lot of different services have them all linked together anyway. Mm-hmm. So if somebody wants to do research on you, spend the whole 5 minutes, they could probably answer most security questions about you. Which leads us to another oldie but goodie, Holly, and I know this is your favorite, is with security answers, use fake answers.
Fake answers works great.
Record it, obviously, somewhere safe. But
in my LastPass account.
Yep. I know people that do that per account. They have, different fake answers per account. That's a great way to go.
I started doing that, but then it can get confusing at times. I mean, they're all laid out and everything. So yeah, but I've done that. I've got some
Yeah,
different, answers for different sites.
great. So, just to close with, if identity theft happens, there are steps you can take pretty quickly um, to really shut it down and move on with life. It doesn't have to be the end of the world. Now, depending on the type of theft, if somebody was successful in filing a return with the IRS, that could take some time to undo. But again, the IRS is actually doing a very good job this year of dealing with those incidents. Again, but also having a police report filed, big deal. Because that way, if you have to provide that report number for any services, having it just makes everything simpler. In my police department, I submitted the whole thing online. So identity theft, like you mentioned, is truly a topic near and dear to my heart. That is really, one of the major end games for a lot of the criminal activity we see online. Stealing somebody's identity, opening credit cards, buying houses, boats, opening lines of credit, new bank accounts, that kind of thing. Just in fact, about 3 weeks ago, I was on a vacation day with my sons, and I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize.
Okay, that just looped around. But as a reminder, important steps to take with your protecting your identity is monitoring your bank accounts, your credit cards, your bank statements, making sure that the information that's on there is actually your stuff. And then the passwords, your email account, where all of your information is coming into from your credit card companies, from your bank, using good, strong passwords. And for those of you who may be AAA members, LifeLock is one of the benefits we get with our AAA memberships. And you get, I believe, the $9.99 version of LifeLock. They have different levels, but you can get that as part of your AAA membership. So you can take advantage of that. And then also the credit freeze. And if you go to security.apu.edu, you'll see the information on how to do the credit freeze. There is a small cost involved, but it is a huge way to protect your credit. You have to remember that you've got the credit freeze so that you don't try to open a credit card or buy a car and they can't run your credit because of the credit freeze. So that is that for today. For November, we're going to be looking at Windows Defender. That's part of the Windows 10 software, and Sean's going to take a look at that and kind of advise us on, is that enough protection? Of course, if something major happens in this world of security, we will preempt that. But then again, we want to, with the latest and greatest news. On October 11th, hang out with IMT. We're going to be featuring our project management team. And then we have a very special Final Friday wrap-up coming on the 28th of October. You definitely want to catch that one because we're going to be making an exciting announcement, some changes that we're making there that I think people are going to enjoy. So that's it for today. If you have any questions, you can always email iso@apu.edu. Have a great day.
So I let it go to voicemail.